your speed.
Sometimes you find the news, and sometimes the news finds you.
All stations can keep up. At Adaba FM, we'll not only give you news at the speed of nanosecond, but we'll also break it down with up-to-date analysis, informed opinions, and distinct professionalism. That's why you love us. Adaba 88.9 FM, your go-to station.
It's 12 o'clock. Good afternoon, I'm Michael Akintunde with Global News. In the news, United Nations to establish tuberculosis vaccine accelerator council. Iran executes 4 men participating in nationwide protests. Ukraine's minister, 15 others die in helicopter crash.
This is the news.
President Muhammadu Buhari says Nigeria spent over $1 billion to reclaim Boko Haram-held territories in Borno, Adamawa and Yobe State since 2015. He, however, said Nigerian security and that of Lake Chad Basin remains unstable due to lingering conflict in Libya, the Central African Republic, and Russia's aggression in Ukraine. President Buhari said this on Tuesday shortly after receiving the award for strengthening peace in Africa, conferred on him by the Abu Dhabi Peace Forum in Nouakchott, the Mauritanian capital. The president premised his argument on the free circulation of all sorts of small and light weapons orchestrated by foreign FIG. He also reasoned that the idleness of African youths and non-inclusion in discussing issues that concern them is providing a steady recruitment for the extremist organizations wreaking havoc in various parts of the continent. Libya has donated foodstuffs to Tunisia as the country is experiencing shortages in basic commodities. A convoy of 96 trucks carrying sugar, oil, flour and rice passed the Ras Jadiah Bridge late yesterday. A donation that comes less than 2 months after the visit to Tunis of the interim Libya Prime Minister Abdulhamid Dbeibah, based in Tripoli, aimed at warming ties with the government of Tunisia's President Kais Saied. The border region between Tunisia and Libya is the hub of a flourishing trade. The Director General of the World Health Organization, Dr. Tedros, has announced plans to establish a new TB vaccine accelerator council. Dr. Tedros said this at a high-level panel on tuberculosis at the World Economic Forum. He noted that the adverse impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on tuberculosis services had brought the urgency of vaccine development efforts into sharp focus. He said the council will facilitate the licensing and use of effective novel TB vaccines, catalyzing high-level alignment between funders, global agencies, governments, and end users in identifying and overcoming barriers to the TB vaccine development. An alleged leader of a criminal network involved in an European Union corruption scandal has agreed to reveal which countries were involved and how it operated. A lawyer for Pier Antonio Panzeri said his client had agreed to tell all after reaching a deal with prosecutors. The former member of the European Parliament is one of the 4 suspects being held in Belgium. They are suspected of accepting bribes from Qatar and Morocco in return for influencing the parliament in Brussels. Qatar has strenuously denied that it tried to gain influence through gifts and money, while Morocco has also strongly rejected allegations that it sought influence on issues such as fishing rights and the disputed status of Western Sahara. You're on to Global News from Adaba 88.9 FM Akure, transmitting from Ilaramokin. After the break, Iran has accused 4 men participating in nationwide protests, plus Ukraine's minister, 15 others die in helicopter crash. Stay with us. We'll be back again.
The news on Adaba 88.9 FM.
Glad to know you're still there for news updates and live streaming. Visit our website www.adaba889.fm or download Adaba FM app on Google Play Store. You can be part of us on our social media platforms www.facebook.com/AdabaFM 80.9 on Facebook, at Adaba889FM on Instagram, and Adaba FM TV on YouTube. To provide us information, you can reach us via email newsroom@adaba889.fm. Brazil's prosecutor general has presented his first charge against some of the thousands of people accused of storming government buildings in an effort to overturn the results of the October election, which former President Jair Bolsonaro lost. The prosecutors in the recently formed group to combat anti-democratic acts also requested that the 39 defendants accused of ransacking Congress be imprisoned as a preventive measure. They also requested that about $8 million of their assets be frozen to help cover damages. The defendants have been charged with armed criminal association, violent attempt to subvert the democratic state of law, staging a coup, and damage to public property, while their identities have not yet been released. More than 1,000 people were arrested on the day of the January 8 riot, which bore strong similarities to the January 6, 2021 riot at the U.S. Congress by mobs who wanted to overturn former President Donald Trump's loss in the November 2020 election. And 4 young men have been executed in connection with a nationwide protest that erupted in Iran 4 months ago, while 18 other people have been sentenced to death. While human rights groups have said they were convicted after grossly unfair sham trials. Mohammed Mehdi Karami, a 22-year-old karate champion, was hanged on 7th January, just 65 days after his arrest. Sources have told newsmen that he had less than 15 minutes to defend himself in court. The sources said the story shows how authorities in Iran are using show trials to strike fear into the hearts of the protesters who are demanding freedom and an end to the clerical regime. 16 people have been killed, including Ukraine's Interior Affairs Minister, after a helicopter crashed beside a kindergarten in an eastern suburb of the capital, Kiev. 2 children were among the dead and 10 more are being treated in hospital. The minister, Denis Monashisky, was with 8 others in the helicopter. Officials said his first deputy minister and the state secretary also died when the helicopter came down in the suburb of Brovary. National Police Chief Ihel Kelimenko wrote on Facebook that the helicopter belonged to the Ukraine State Emergency Service. Rafael Nadal's Australian Open title defense is over after his second round defeat by American Mackenzie McDonald, in which he struggled with an injury. The Spaniard was trailing by a set and a break when he pulled up with what appeared to be a hip problem. He took a medical timeout toward the end of the second set and continued with the match, but ultimately slipped to a 6-4, 6-3, 7-5 defeat. It is Rafael Nadal's earliest exit at the Australian Open since 2016. It was a career end for Nadal after his turn in 2022, where he came back from 2 sets down to beat Daniil Medvedev in last year's final in Melbourne and won a record-extending 14th French Open crown in June. To end global news, a recap of our top stories. Director General of the World Health Organization, Dr. Tedros, has announced plans to establish a new tuberculosis vaccine accelerator, CANSO. 4 young men have been executed in connection with a nationwide protest that erupted in Iran 4 months ago, while 18 other people have been sentenced to death. 16 people have been killed, including Ukraine's Interior Affairs Minister, after a helicopter crashed beside a kindergarten in an eastern suburb of the capital, Kiev. And that's Global News. Editor Sunday Ajiboye. I'm Michael Akintele. Good afternoon.
The world moves at a fast pace, and news breaks